Hello and welcome to the February 15th weekly JupyterLab call. Today we have 20 people on the call, and despite that, we have a paltry 2 people on the agenda so far. So if there's anything you'd like to talk about, your audience to speaker ratio is pretty good. But with that, why don't we get started? Fred, you are up first.
Yeah, sorry, there is lots of bullet points. So let's get started. The first question is related to JupyterLab 4. So for now, we have released a beta version of Lumino 2, and there hasn't been any major PR breaking or bringing new API or breaking some API like lately. So I have a question: is it okay to move on and to the release candidates? The idea would be to have the final release of Lumino 2 at the same time we do the feature freeze of JupyterLab, so that we can move smoothly forward with JupyterLab 4 beta cycle, then RC cycle, and so on. So that's the first question.
So that PR in the chat, I think, is ready to go. There was a bug in it, but I think Stephanie has pushed a fix for it. I don't know if other people who are reviewing it have anything to say, but it actually looks pretty ready. So I'm going to take one last look at that so we can get that into this RC. But if it turns out there was something else up, we can just put that in RC2. So it doesn't block in RC1, I don't think. Does anyone else have any Lumino things that they're aware of? Oh, wait, Stephanie's on the call. Sorry. Hi.
Hi. No, I'm adding tests right now to that PR. So if you want, I hope to have that today or tomorrow in. So then you will have, you will be able to do a final review on that PR. And then that will hopefully get merged for the RTC. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, great. That sounds good. So, Mike, is the scrolling of tab bars one an API change? Are you happy for it to? Well, actually, yeah. I guess the question is 1 week notice to try to get that in. Fred, what was the date you had in mind to do NRC?
I did not have specific date in mind. Like, I was more about the sooner the better, but depending on what people brought up as a subject that are left on the table. But to wait a week and then do the RC, it's fine for me. I mean, and then that means the final will be beginning of March. I won't be able to do it 1st of March, but so I mean, it's still fine.
Okay, yeah, why don't we pick that then? If that seems to help Mike get what he wants in, and that gives a few days for Stephanie to get her tests in, and
so
yeah,
just to set one day, I would say the ETA is March, in a week from now, March 22nd.
February 22nd.
February, sorry. I really want JupyterLab 4 to be out.
Okay, cool.
So the next one, so maybe I will read the comment of Jason. Thanks for commenting directly. The question was about what's the process to grant triage rights to new people, because we have Florence from Constack that's interesting to get those rights. So apparently, Jason said in the past it was pretty liberal. So if there is no objection, then I will grant Florence the right. And if somebody then in the call is interested to get them, then feel free to just comment right now or ping me and I can grant you the same rights. For information, triage rights mean that you can update metadata on issue and PR, and I think it's just that.
Yeah, in the past, basically anyone who's asked to triage, we've gladly given them the right to, because it's something that's helpful. Does anyone have a counterpoint, an objection?
Oh yeah, Jason is right. Is on the chat. He say the people can also close the issue. Where like you have the ability to close and reopen issues. Yeah, true.
Yeah, so go for it then.
Okay, thanks. And then next point. So we have moved, and I didn't put more information, just link the PR. So we have moved the code for collaboration UI element into the Jupyter server white doc package, so the repository that was containing the backend code. And that has been moved to JupyterLab organization. First, we rename it as JupyterLab RTC. Sorry, it's getting dark in my room. The trouble is that we realized that the name was taken by the previous experiment using AutoMerge, and so it was taken on PyPy. So I was discussing with Carlos, and we were thinking like to rename the package JupyterLab Collaboration. And then David blended in saying, okay, maybe it should be called Jupyter Collaboration. So the main question is like that let me write. That David brought is like, should it be called more JupyterLab or Jupyter Collaboration? And the main arguments of David was to say that it was not specific, like the Python code was not specific to JupyterLab. I think it's also like bring maybe a more generic question. Know that Notebook 7 is coming. Should those kind of extension that are basically targeting both JupyterLab and Notebook be called like Jupyter something, or should we call them JupyterLab as they are first targeting JupyterLab? Yeah, that's the question. And yeah, there is other question about collaboration, but yeah. So I think the best is probably for people that are at FIDs, because I don't think we'll decide just today. So to go to the PR and bring their IDs on what could be a better naming for the package. So because of it, we haven't done yet any release, so we have to decide quite quickly so that we can start to have release to be sure that the extraction went well and the RTC is still working.
Okay. Any other comments on package? I guess people are commenting in the chat and not in the chat, in the agenda. And also the issue is a good place, but should we move on to the build tools?
Yeah, sure. That's a question that has been raised in the past, but with the release of Jupyter 3.6, there are some people that have trouble because JupyterLab is needed for building the package, like when you are doing a pre-built package. As in 3.6, we introduced dependency on a Rust compiled code package. Some extension author got into trouble to package their own extension, although they don't need that dependency because that Rust dependency is used for RTC. That has nothing to do to the build process. But because for now we are shipping everything like the build helpers within JupyterLab, then they get into trouble. So the question is like, do we want to extract the builder tool for, meaning that it can be a very complex subject regarding how much time we have left, because I don't know how easy it is to extract from core. And if so, is there somebody that is available to lead that work?
what is the consequence of not releasing or not doing this work?
The main consequence is just that we'll keep having a heavy dependency for downstream extension author to a package builder extension. So yeah, that's the only thing. And depending on what we do with the RTC code that we have extracted, depending if we keep it as a dependency by default or not, we will still have the those kind of trouble with the dependency that are that relies on REST compiled code, and so that are not available on some architecture.
But if we extract RTC and do nothing else, then it just increases the amount of dependencies you have, but doesn't cause any additional harm. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Oh, Vidar has his hand up. He can go after.
Yeah, so I just it's not very constructive, but one thing to be careful of is if you do make this an separate extension, then you have to care about both backwards and forwards compatibility, right? Because if somebody has an extension that they originally built for JupyterLab 3.2 and JupyterLab 3.4 comes out, and then something changes in the builder, then they also they need an additional pin in their setup, right? They need to pin their version potentially of the JupyterLab build tools. Or if they don't have a pin, we need to make sure that that package is both forwards and backwards compatible.
Yeah, that is really true.
It's producing extensions that are forwards compatible, but that its API is backwards compatible. That's I think the way to look at it. But yeah, it gets a little bit. You need to wrap your head around it correctly.
Yeah, thanks, Vidar. That's also why, like, in regard to the calendar, the target that we have for 4, it may be tough to achieve it in a robust way.
Second question is, how much of that code in the build tools is actually Python versus JavaScript?
Also, Matt's got his hand up.
I don't want to derail the larger discussion of extracting the build tools, but just to address the upstream issue where the Rust compiled code, the YPy library didn't have wheels for those other architectures. I've kind of fallen into helping the CI on the YPy repository. I initially was just interested in YPy in the WASM realm, and then jumped into try and get CI working for these other architectures like the AMD 60 or ARC 64. It has been very slow to iterate on CI changes. So if anyone knows, who has maintainer on the YCRDT YPy repo, if we could get some other JupyterLab contributors able to merge PRs and release on YPy, that would help with iterating on adding other architectures or building wheels for other architectures when necessary.
Thanks. And so maybe first to answer Vidar, the tool, I think it's mainly Python, like Python that are using subprocess. And because the builder package, the NPM package, is less controversial in the sense that we can always download it from NPM directly. So the trouble is really that people had to add in their build system dependency that they need JupyterLab.
Yeah, no, I agree that pulling in JupyterLab just to build your extension is excessive, maybe. But of course, if you do make it a separate package, then we need to also
Yeah.
separate out the JavaScript code of that, and I'm not currently sure how interlinked they are or not.
Yeah, me neither. That's why that's why I'm very cautious about like what's the amount of work and is it achievable in a short period, because like it's a couple of weeks we are speaking about. So it's because I'm speaking for 20 minutes. I will just finish by an announcement. There is the performance meeting after this one, and thank you all for answering all my questions.
Okay, thank you. Mehmet, you are up.
Hey everyone. Last week I released the new version of JupyterLab Desktop, and this was a major upgrade. I had done a demo like 3 weeks ago here, and this version introduced a lot of new features, and the major focus was on the user experience and making it more user-friendly. And I announced it with a blog post and a tweet. And there was a lot of great interest, a lot of praises on the social media. And I shared some stats on the meeting notes. And yeah, please check it out. This was a really big hit.
Sweet. Thank you for the announcement. And that's really cool about all the feedback on it. Okay, next person up is Mike.
Just a brief highlight to an issue. So with the release of Jupyter YDoc, which was extracted, and JupyterLab collaboration, we have a little bit more difficult situation for developers, both extension developers and code developers, because the API documentation / reference is not navigable. It cannot click on items which are in different packages, different repositories. And I opened an issue to discuss how we could interconnect the documentation. From what Nick has investigated, there are basically two ways forward. Either we try to use a third-party symbols feature of TypeDoc, or consider moving everything to Sphinx with Sphinx.js. So the API documentation would become one with the core JupyterLab documentation, and then use intersphinx to reference symbols across repositories. And I'm just interested in whether anyone else has thoughts on that, whether one or the other approach is better, and what you in general think about this separation that we currently have between the API reference and the main documentation being two separate websites. Linking the notes I will also paste in the chat.
Any questions, comments? Okay, well, hopefully we can fix these bugs soon, because this is super annoying. So thanks for working on it. Isabella, you are up.
Thanks. I just have a quick thing. Gabriel couldn't make the meeting today, but I know he's been working on some adjustments to focus state in JupyterLab. Said that PR is ready for review again, so I am simply the messenger today. Thanks.
Any volunteers to review this PR in the chat? I mean, you don't have to answer now, but review it, please, if you are inclined. Okay. Jason W., you are up.
Is it time?
Well, let's see, it says, oh, I see, that's preamble for issue triage at the bottom, yeah. So I guess before we jump into this, anyone have anything else they'd like to talk about? If you'll recall, because we have the feature freeze on the 28th, we are allocating part of each call to do issue triage to try to close the number of issues we're targeting for JupyterLab 4.0 final. And so if you don't have anything to raise before jumping into triage, that is what we are going to do. I will give you a few seconds. Okay, now, as I recall, we stopped the recordings, right?
Did we do our triaging on the record? I think we stopped the recording for
We
it.
stopped
I
the
forget.
recording.
Last week.
Okay. Thanks, Tony.
Everyone.